Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 11th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. This is a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen, the FAA, and the school committee. The meeting is being recorded. Without objection, the chair of the Board of Selectmen will facilitate item 2A on the agenda, with the understanding that the FAA chair will chair the FAA committee concurrently, including any allowable discussion, questions, business, or motions requested or required under item 2A. First order of business, as always, the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 2, Chairman Siganovich will be here in a bit, by the way.
Mr. Chairman.
Ruda.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're being recorded.
I did. Before we did that. Item 2, public business. FAA Board of Selectmen to discuss the FY25 budget and review draft warrant and take any action relative thereto. Mr. Mayotte?
Mr. Chairman, you want to go over the warrant one at a time?
Do you want to do?
I want to do it.
We do the warrant, or are we going to do the budget first?
Whatever the pleasure of the FAA is.
Okay, whatever, like Mike.
Well, since we're waiting for the chairman
We can
to
go.
go a little bit, you want to?
He's coming.
Yeah.
But
So you want to start on
the
the
warrant.
warrant
Yeah, let's
articles,
do
and
that.
we'll skip over the
Yep,
budget.
sounds good. I'll pull that up. So, you want to go down the list with your...
Well, Article 1 and Article 2 are just housekeeping articles that we would,
Yep.
Article 3 would be the budget we can come back to.
Yep.
Start with Article 5.
Revolving funds.
Article 4, Mr.
Article 4.
Chairman.
Article,
Revolving
oh,
funds.
also, sorry, back page. Yeah, the revolving funds.
Revolving funds. Chairman, this is the reauthorization which happens on an annual basis for revolving funds. We have to authorize their use annually. Well, the town meeting has to authorize their use annually, including the annual spending limits. I'm not sure. I don't think we made any adjustments in the amounts allowed. So that's another housekeeping article, essentially.
Yep.
Any questions from FAA on this article?
On Article 4? No.
Just to be clear, this is not the money we're putting in those accounts. This is just the spending limit.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The way the revolving accounts work is that it's a revenue in and an expense out account with a limit assigned to it, meaning that you can't stockpile it. You have to spend it for authorized use.
And one of the notes here, just for everybody's information, is the revenues received into these funds are not considered a revenue source when calculating budgeted receipts, nor when computing the town's tax levy. Say that.
Correct. So, for example, the Hometown Heroes revolving fund, that's the banners that we have along West Main Street and onto Schofield Ave. People come in and pay for those banners. That'll be deposited into the account, and then when they're received and we get the bill, they're paid directly from that account.
Any questions from FAA at all on that? Okay. Article 5 is from the Water and Sewer Commissioners to see if the town will transfer sewer retained earnings, $300,000, which would be $80,000 for the Webster processing, and Webster true up $220,000. Questions on any of these?
questions on that?
We don't have anybody from water sewer here, do we?
Why would they?
Okay. So, I guess my question is, they got budgeted $891,274 for processing, and he needs 80,000 in their budget, but they're transferring 80,000 from retained earnings to cover that budget item. Are they short in their budget? For revenue?
I think the last time we had a discussion about this, Mr. Chairman, it was, the true-up was that they had been billed year after year for quite a few years for the same amount of money, and it wasn't adjusted for cost increases. So they hired a private consultant, split the cost with Webster, and they figured out what the true-up amount would be. So they were short in their payments over the course of at least 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so I can see the true-up is a bill, but the payment, the processing payment of 80,000, wouldn't that be already factored into their budget? In that line item?
I think that would be better, that question would be better asked of the commissioners.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to wait till we have a meeting with somebody from there, because that's, it's, to me, that's showing that you're kind of an indication that you're shy on your revenues to cover your operating budget, if you're pulling from retained earnings for that. But, anyway. I'll leave it to them to answer that one. Anybody from the Board of Selectmen? Okay, Article 6, water and sewer, to see if the town will transfer water retained earnings, $4,380 for unpaid bills. Again, there's nobody from water and sewer, so don't know what those unpaid bills are. You have any idea, John?
I don't have a listing of the bills, but that's a typical fiscal year request. There's always something left behind that doesn't get paid and is found out too late. We can only pay bills within the same fiscal, and I know everyone knows this, I'm just saying it for the public. We can only pay our bill in the fiscal year that was generated. If it doesn't get paid, if there's an oversight, if it was underpaid, if it was double paid, the correction has to be made in following fiscal years and appropriated by town meeting.
All right, moving on. Article 7, treasurer collector, to see if the town will appropriate from free cash the amount of $10,382 for an unpaid bill to Boston Mutual for fiscal year 2023, or take any action relative thereto. Rich?
Good evening. It would be very much like the town administrator had just said. We have a previous balance from that needs to get addressed. So this year is paid, but the previous year remains, the difference being the cost center at which it goes. There's a Boston Mutual that goes part of Insurance General. There's one that's part of the group insurance. So one's property and casualty covering a short-term disability. The other one goes through and is costed out to the other one. We tried to get this paid midsummer and it was pushed off to be an unpaid bill.
Okay. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Anybody? Any questions? Done. Seeing none, I'll move on. Article 8 is the police cruiser. See if the town appropriate sum of $60,000 free cash to pay for the purchase of a vehicle. and take any action relative thereto. Mr. Chairman, capital improvement met earlier in the month, and Chief came up with, this is an administrative car. And capital improvement approved it for the purchase. We don't want to wait much longer because the prices are going through the roof on these things. I think, Jay, you were at that meeting, right? So, good time right now to get it. So, and it would be a transfer of free cash. I think originally we were going to go with potentially funding it out of capital improvement stabilization, but we're going to kind of move things around a little bit with the budget. So, that'll be a free cash. Any questions? It's going to be easy. All right, Article 9, Treasurer Collector Town Clerk. This is the annual increases. This will be for $4,100. Is this for the Treasurer Collector? $4,143, and for the Town Collector $3,566. And this will also be a transfer from the free cash account. These are annual increases, since they don't fall within the budgetary increases. We don't do budgetary increases on these.
Elected officials, there's a requirement that it be approved
By the town.
pointed out by a town meeting.
Now, we had done this once last year. We did we kept it in the budget.
We kept it in the budget.
But we motioned that it was
Correct.
in the budget. So we're gonna keep it outside again and
Correct.
for one article.
So, clarification on that. The salary of the elected officials need to be listed out. They can be part of the budget, they can be outside of the budget, but the number needs to be a finite amount. It can't be a standard placeholder and later on in the year, Board of Selectmen decide, great job, Rich, here's an extra $1 a week. Needs to be spelled out in a town meeting vote, so it needs to be that specific. Separating it out versus leaving it in the budget is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Any questions? All right. Article 10 would be the employee merit pool. Vote to transfer $19,839 from free cash to the merit-based increases for non-union employees fiscal year 2025.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is a merit-based increase for non-union employees, budgeted at town meeting and applied based on their performance. And now, so the 2025 increase would be based on 2024's evaluation.
Okay. No problem with that. Anybody from FAA want any questions on the merit pool? Dam inspections, see if the town appropriate $25,000 from free cash for performing regulatory dam inspections and reporting requirements in accordance with the, I won't read the chapter, but our required dam inspections.
Correct.
Where are we on that now?
So we have one grant that we were approved for, which will move forward to construction. There'll be a town match. We can do some of that match by using our highway department to do some of the construction. They consider that in lieu of actual cash payment. We have one dam that is we're out of compliance on, so we have to, that's the next in the priority list for grant applications in order to try to mitigate that dam, because the cost is astronomical just to remove a dam, the engineering that's involved and so forth. The cost is astronomical to mitigate that. So we're just taking it by priority, step by step, and addressing these dams. And in the meantime, we have to remain compliant with annual inspections. And so we're doing that. And this article will fund the 11 dams, I believe, that we have in time to get the inspections completed.
Okay. Anybody on FAA?
Definitely need to do this one, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I know. FAA good? Board of Selectmen good? All right.
Sorry, before we move on, I do have a quick question. So we have, you know, those articles that are pulling from free cash. What exactly is the balance of the free cash account right now?
About 150.
It's at 150.
It's 150, and depending on how we apply it
Right.
with the budget, well, I've left enough out to cover the articles.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
You want to skip over the planning board ones, Mr. Chairman, or do you want to mention them?
Drive over, yeah, I don't. Article 13 is your, the Board of Selectmen's warrant. Does this have any?
Well, Article 12 is a, from Planning Board article, shared driveway standards to establish design standards for shared driveways, but they're not here.
That might be a refer back to the
I refer back to
petitioners.
Planning Board, exactly.
Well, the petitioner would be the planning board, right?
Correct.
The planning board, you're
It's not a
right.
citizen petition.
Right.
I was just warming up for the last ones.
Yeah, I saw which one.
Article 13, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. St. Anthony Road acceptance.
So St. Anthony Road pursuit of betterment, the work is done. Now we have a surveyor and the highway superintendent lined up to go place the meets and bounds, and that's the information that's highlighted here and needs to be included. Then the Board of Selectmen will be asked to lay out do the street layout in the first meeting in May, and then it should be ready to be accepted by town meeting, based on the vote.
That's great news.
It is, Mr. Chairman, as long as their Form H is completed by town meeting. If it's not, then we're not gonna be able to accept it, right?
We should have it done by then. I think it's happening this week or the beginning of next.
Okay,
All right, good.
thank you.
So that'll make how many roads under the betterment program?
3 or 4 so far?
Well, 2 finished, right?
At least 2.
2 finished, yeah.
Partridge Hill
Yep. Awesome.
and Anthony's.
Yep. Article 14 is a water line easement. Mr. Ruda?
So year after year, for example, last year we borrowed for the compliance and regulatory costs associated with the emergency response action the town and Gentex are under from the DEP to install and maintain and test water systems, private water systems, because the DEP is unable to determine who is responsible for the contamination of private wells. If it is a town issue because of our capped landfill leaching into the system, leaching into the groundwater, or if it's partially or on Gentex in its entirety because of things that have happened there in the past. So we're sharing the costs. We've installed systems all around Eagle Drive. We're maintaining those systems. They're filtration systems that take the contaminants out of the private wells, but it's a big, expensive, ongoing cost. And this article seeks an easement in, on, under, along, and across Eagle Drive to install a water line, which will cure the problem. And right now, we have a public hearing. We've noticed all the residents of Eagle Drive. We have a public hearing scheduled for
April 22nd.
April 22nd, the next meeting, so they can come in and hear what the plan is. The residents can come in and hear what the plan is. And I'll say right off the bat that the installation of the water line all the way to the house is not going to be borne. There's not going to be a cost associated to the residents for that. We're seeking grant funding for that.
Anybody have any questions on that one for now?
But there'll be more to come on that. So the purpose of this article is to gain the easement on the private road and install the water line and mitigate the problem with the water, as opposed to the ongoing expense of maintaining 27 systems right now.
Okay. Questions, anybody on that?
Is this, yeah, just a quick question. I don't know, this really doesn't, I don't know if this has anything to do with finance or anything, but, is this gonna be an optional hookup?
Well, I really want to kind of wait till town council will be here and our LSP, the site engineer, will be there, and we'll have a big discussion about whether it's optional, because I don't want to say the wrong thing at this point.
Right. And
then everybody stews about it until the next meeting. Let's just wait till the meeting and those questions can be asked, and we'll get the correct answers.
Fair enough. Article 15, the Dudley Historical Commission. This is about to amend the use of the town-owned property known as the Dye House on Ardlock Place and rename it to Centennial Park for the tricentennial of Dudley coming up in 2032. Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, I thought we were gonna have a chance to address this again with the Historical Commission for individual board member questions and concerns. So we're gonna be able to handle that before the town meeting?
So when we discussed it with town council, the advice given was that this is not a Board of Selectmen decision to make, it's a town meeting decision to make. That's how we made it onto the warrant,
So how
at the
does...
request of the Historical Commission.
Right, no, I figured that was coming, but how do we have if we have questions, I know it goes to town meeting. You know, there was talk that night about access, scope of the project. You know, Mr. Bazinet talked about bringing water, power, sewer.
We could, I could propose, through the chair, that we put it on the May 6th agenda and ask the Historical Commission to come in and close the loop.
Because I did take a ride up there, and I don't know if anybody else did. I've been up there in the past, but that road is very narrow.
Can we do that?
And I don't know where they're gonna park. Like, if you go up to the top, to the right, where that last driveway's on the left, it is kind of flat up there, but it's all grass. There's a little bit of an old dirt turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Mr. Bazzett indicated maybe some outside entertainment, which, I don't know if that's gonna generate 5 cars, 10 cars, 15 cars. You know, I would think it's more than just renaming it. And I get it, that was his first step in the process, but the end, and I think we all wanna see something there, but I have some questions, concerns that we brought up that night. That's all. I wanna make sure we have them addressed before we just arbitrarily.
Yeah, no, I get it, Mr. Sullivan. I think it's better to talk about it before rather than,
Yeah, that night it's gonna be
there's a lot
between the budget
to
and
talk about,
Right.
right?
Some big articles on here.
Sure.
Solicitor's bylaws next.
Right.
All right, that's all. I just wanna see us have a chance.
Rich?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Radner, who had done the playground design, is the lead on the concept for the park, or the proposed park. So I have faith that we'll be able to deliver something great up there, and with everyone's concerns. I'm sure Mr. Sullivan does not stand alone that maybe it's not set up for, but they've engaged a professional to go through and do this, much like going to put some sidewalks on Airport Road. You have a professional going through, and they'd be the best ones to answer those questions. That's about as far into the conversation that I've been, so thank you.
Fair. Thanks, Rich. Anything else on that one, guys? All right, Article 16 is from the Police Department. Solicitor's bylaw. Chief is not here. Mr. Ruda, you wanna...
Yeah, I can speak briefly on that. I can speak briefly on Articles 16 and 17. Essentially, what the chief is proposing is 2 bylaws. One is for registering with the police department before you go to door soliciting. I I think that there's been an ongoing problem with people calling about suspicious vehicles in the area and people walking around the property and not knowing that there were actually people soliciting solar and that sort of thing. So they need some teeth to be able to enforce that. This is the chief asking the town meeting to give him the teeth to enforce that kind of thing. The second one is fairly self-explanatory. He's proposing a noise bylaw. How many times in the last 10 years, Mr. Chairman, can you remember that we've had noise complaints? People come in about the noise at the college, for example, or the noise here, or the noise from trucks in certain areas. Businesses, so the problem is we don't have a noise bylaw that's enforceable. If the town meeting approves this, now the police chief has the ability to enforce certain noise ordinances.
And we've tried this before, right, Mr. Ruda?
We've tried it before.
Or somebody
If people come in usually before the Board of Selectmen and they have a noise complaint and it's an ongoing complaint, or it's a constant complaint to the police department, and the response is we don't have the ability to enforce it because there's no noise bylaw in place. So this proposes a noise bylaw to the town meeting, and if the town meeting votes to accept it, it's enforceable. If they reject it, then we continue down the same path and say we can ask them to stop, but it's not enforceable.
What about the Jake break? I've had that the last couple of mornings.
Oh, we have signs up in Jericho. I don't know how much it gets paid attention to or enforced. The signs up there say no Jake break. I mean, we've gotten complaints in the past over there. Those people got 150-year-old houses that are cracking and.
Oh, yeah. It shakes the windows.
And there are certain agricultural exclusions, parades,
Emergency vehicles.
noise caused by lawful activities related to fishing and hunting, and usually I'm pretty quiet when I fish, but
Hopefully there's not a parade between now.
highway maintenance, so it at least starts the conversation and it gives the ability to,
Right.
see what the town meeting thinks.
Okay. Questions on that one, guys? FAA? All right. Okay, now we get into the next section of articles. Article 18, these are citizen petitions. I'll read this one. Term limits. You will only have the right to hold public positions to 2 terms. You can only work in different departments in Dudley for 15 years. There will be no lifetime positions. Those who exceed the limit must resign.
Do we know if that's retroactive? I'll see you guys later.
I vote yes.
Good.
Half of our police department.
Do I have to sign this,
For a
do I have
while.
to sign this back in?
Half the building will leave, right?
Yeah, no kidding, the full-time staff would be great.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of everybody.
Yeah, that's fine.
Article 19, also citizen petition. When paying taxes, we expect the city to clear the snow and sand during winter, private and public streets.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
my question to the town administrator, I think I know the answer. This bylaw would, in theory, attempt to supersede state law when it comes to private way and what the town can do to maintain it. Which, obviously, state law would supersede the town, but I'm just saying this bylaw is an attempt to get around.
Well, it probably.
Okay. Which probably won't pass. Muster.
Well, it'll probably pass.
It
but
won't pass
doesn't-
muster.
Yeah, that's
Right.
fine.
Okay.
Article 20, citizen petition. After the age of 65, Dudley Town residents' real estate taxes on a primary home will be reduced by 50%.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan?
if I'm 64 years old and I want to move to Dudley, I can move to Dudley and immediately get a 50% reduction on my taxes? That's how I'm reading this. I mean, the intent might be, again, supersede the authority of the assessors through state statute, but the way it's written, that's a plausible scenario.
It is.
I don't think that anybody has a petitioner. Okay.
Hmm?
All right, thank you.
Yep. Article 21, citizen petition. Only registered people can vote. Be a USA citizen. You must present ID with photo before voting. Trying to cheat, 1 year in prison. All calculating machines will be destroyed. You must vote in person. Votes will be counted on the same day.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sullivan.
doesn't that, part of that sounds what you have to be now. You have to be registered voter to vote. I assume they made registered voter. You have to be a US citizen. An ID can be required now, correct? And are we destroying machines after every single election? It's gonna get kind of costly pretty quick around here.
Doesn't say, are we counting by hand or?
And again, vote in person, it's a,
You have state laws about that too.
well, we also have to, as selectmen, we are, work off our town clerk's recommendation, because we had some vote by mail that we did not continue and others that we did. But absentee ballot is a right protected under state law. Am I correct, Mr. Representative?
I believe so. I believe you're correct.
And don't we, Michelle, you can help me because you work the polls, don't we essentially count all votes on the same day? Except maybe a handful of mail-in ones that come in
They
with the post.
try.
Yeah, they do them
Try.
Yeah.
There's a lot of write-ins.
during the day.
Well, also, if you get a vote by mail that's postmarked by the proper date and it comes in, you, by law, have to count that.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. That was in Arizona for a minute.
No, you're not.
Thank you.
All right, Article 22, citizen petition, to reduce Dudley town real estate taxes by 20%.
Mr. Chair, again, I
Mr.
keep
Sullivan.
asking questions. Does this mean, again, we probably have to get the intent of the petitioner. Does this mean if I get a bill for $4,000 and it includes debt exclusion or overrides or long-term debt incurred, we're just gonna arbitrarily just chop 20% off, or is it 20% off the tax rate? I mean, I don't understand what the intent of this
I'm hoping or assuming the
petitioner.
petitioner will stand up at town meeting and defend it.
Okay, I don't know if anybody had the answer.
20%'s a big number, but, you know, school's here, you know, FAA's here, you know, just saying. Article 23, citizen petition, to override Proposition 2.5, you need 75% of all registered voters.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sullivan.
To the administrator, isn't there a state mandated mechanism in place to, what do we call it, underride and override? You can overturn an override.
We don't talk about that, but yes,
Well,
there is something in
all you
place.
gotta do is- all you gotta do
We
is-
never bring that up publicly.
All you gotta do is the power of Google, right? Just put it
Right.
in there, so.
Yeah. I don't think, Mr. Chairman, you can require somebody to vote, legally require them to vote. What would be the penalty if they didn't turn out?
That was my second question.
No votes are counted?
Correct, that was my second question, Mr. Chair. First off, I don't think I've ever seen a 75% voter turnout, period. There's been 60s. So, assuming this passes muster, if we don't reach the threshold of 75% of all registered voters, that vote will be null and void. So, in theory, if we host an election for, I wish Laurie was here, for $7,000, and we get 74.95% of the voters, didn't get 75.
Mr. Chairman, I believe
Mr.
that's
Johnson.
I believe that's how that reads.
Yeah, that's how I read it. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I think the intent is to make the barrier, the bar so high that it would never happen. That's what I think. Mr. Carmine.
Mr. Chairman, for the last 3 or 4, or these petitioner articles, which I'm certain are well-intended or well-meant, would we be able to get a preliminary legal opinion suggesting that in Massachusetts, town clerks conduct elections under guidance specifically from the state, and, you know, for example, getting 75% isn't mentioned there. It's just insufficient to modify what we, under the regulations we currently, because I'm sure there's going to be debate. Would we be able to get something preliminary, Mass General Law, chapter and verse that suggests, or even case law that said, in order to go through and effectuate a change to any voting law, this is the proper course, or it has been tested with the courts and legally upheld that the state sets the way things are run? Would we be able to get something like that?
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Chairman, because this is all sent to town council
Right.
in advance of the town meeting.
Will they be on hand for this one, Mr. Ruda?
Oh, definitely.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair.
good question.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan.
isn't the general process, and I agree with the treasurer, the general process is you get 10 registered voters and their signatures are validated, that's how it gets on the warrant. Then we send the warrant to council for review anyway,
Correct.
and we have a pre-meeting for the town meeting where we go through the budget line by line. I think at that point, that's when we would probably get council's recommendation, right? We're not gonna get it in advance, are we? Because we usually don't do it that way.
It depends on what the Board of Selectmen directs me to do.
Because does that mean, in theory, we'd have to notify the petitioners to come, if we're gonna discuss a warrant article with town council recommendations, so they can come in and hear it? I mean, just, because it just seems to me it's a, and believe me, I want all the information we can up front, but it just seems to me we're changing the normal process, maybe creating a precedent when it comes to citizen petitions down the road. And again, I don't wanna be starting at 4 o'clock on the town meeting also, you know, we usually meet about half hour, an hour before. So I mean, I guess we can wait till after, but I think the course of action would be get a general overall opinion from council. How do we want to handle this? If he says, I'll review it and make my opinion known that night. Or he might say, sure, I can come in and you should probably notify the petitioner. I just don't want to create a precedent of every citizen's petition comes in, they want legal review before it's required or the obligation of the town. You know what I'm saying?
Mr. Chairman, I think we have the ability to get legal review, and we certainly should provide that opinion to the public.
Yeah.
But I don't think we want to get into the business of having town council paid by the taxpayer to rewrite citizen petitions.
That's my point. If
No,
they come back and they say,
It's meant to go exactly as they wrote it on the petition paper.
right,
which
that's
It has to legally.
Right, legally.
That's my point. I don't wanna- Again, we'll get to almost to the point where, and it's happened, as you know, we've had citizens reach out to council, or try to reach out to the engineer on Eagle Drive personally, where they report to the town, right? We've had people call John Walsh and ask them to do interpretation or interpretive answers for them, for example. I mean, and I'm sure Attorney Randazzo and Blake know enough if the phone rings and someone says, hi, John Smith, Dudley, I need you to tell me if this is legal. They're gonna say, well, I don't report, you know,
Right.
for fiduciary reasons, can't have that.
No.
So we'll, Mr. Chairman, we'll definitely make the opinions known, you know, to the public. They've paid for it. They should definitely know what the opinion was. That's never in question.
Oh, no, I agree with that, we
Yeah.
always do. Just I wanna make sure the process that we've established is followed, because we're gonna make a precedent where who knows what's next, like he said. Well, why can't they just change the language for me and fix it so it goes on the warrant? But so it proceeds, so it's already on the warrant, maybe not formatted properly. Be interesting to hear the answer.
Yeah. Mr. Landry, Mr.
Thank you,
Johnson,
Mr. Chairman.
anything else on that?
Well said.
Mr. Mayotte, anything else on that?
Confused myself.
So how does this work? It basically, FAA chair says, refers it to the petitioner?
Yeah, we would, it's, I
That'd
mean,
be my
there is,
recommendation.
I mean, I guess technically it has a financial impact. That's why I don't know what financial impact, so I would, I don't,
Are we able to look into that? Like,
yeah, without real numbers to see what kind of impact it has on the town, I don't know if we would probably defer, I would assume, defer to the petitioner to make the.
Mr. Johnson?
So, Chairman, in the past town meetings when the FAA hasn't agreed with a warrant article, there's been requests to have it removed, as I remember,
Passed over, maybe?
or passed over.
Passed over, we
Like there was an appointment one, I think that,
I
I
think,
don't know if there was a mechanism that was tried before and it didn't.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the FAA has recommended passing over, and the FAA, if they felt that a 20% reduction on the lowest tax rate in the county would be a negative impact on the town, they could certainly recommend that.
and I'm not just speaking for everybody on FAA, but I would be looking for some sort of legal guidance to see if that would be legal to do to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
From there, I'd want to look and see what the impact would be
And then make the
financially,
recommendation.
then make a recommendation as to whether or not to go. So at this point, my gut feeling would be to pass this over until we, not pass it over, but defer to the petitioner to make his own petition on this, which we've done mostly in citizens petitions anyway.
Well, Mr. Chair, generally speaking too, I think Mr. Mayor's on the right track, but town council can get up there and make a recommendation that, based on their experience, this will probably be disqualified at the Attorney General's level. And as we found out at a previous meeting, the body can force the vote anyway. Because we had a town council recommendation at the last meeting, and it was soundly hooted from the floor, and they turned around and just voted it anyway. So, again, I'd be interested to see what we get from town council regarding this.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yep. We're going through the warrant articles, Mr. Chairman.
Just in time for the last article.
Just in fine time for,
I wish I could have been here earlier. I apologize for my tardiness. Do you want to finish the meeting, Mr. Chair?
yeah, we're gonna go back to the budget after this. I'll finish the one warrant, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So, the Article 24 is the last one, yes. And this one is another citizen petition to form an audit committee. See if the town will vote to amend the Town of Dudley bylaws, adding a new section labeled Permanent Audit Committee. And it's a lot of text here. Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, I hate to put him on the spot. Rich, you don't have to answer this, but I'd like to ask you a question. And again, honestly, if you don't have the answer, I understand. In their statement of purpose, the last sentence, work independent from the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator, and be, and I'm emphasizing now, be legally empowered to have access to any and all records and receipts of the town. You're the CFO of the town, you have certain statutory responsibilities and statutory rights as a treasurer. Again, if you don't have the answer, I think it's gonna cause a problem if an independently appointed audit committee shows up at Rich Carmignani's door on Monday and says, I wanna see something.
Copies of all the checks that were turned over. Other laws come into play. If we go through and make a copy of something, you need to count your personal identifiers. You don't want to go through and say, Chairman Mayotte, and he's got his phone number, and that's not public information. To the flip side, I believe the closer you get to Boston, the more transparency there is. Not that anything's being hidden here, but the town of Dudley wrote a check to pay for X amount of gas to heat the fire station. That information is readily available. I think that's where this is going, but I understand and appreciate we don't want to go through and all of a sudden we get a health insurance enrollment form and somebody's got it in their mind that they want to review all of the intake forms. Well, clearly there's delicate information there, and the other, I would think other laws would apply.
All right, that's what I'm saying, and not just personal information, which was on my mind also, just,
Right.
there's some things that you are statutorily responsible for, and some of it does involve confidentiality.
Delicate information. Bankruptcy records is an easy one to go through. I'm sure there's a public safety You don't get an official, down to the last pill provided report from an ambulance trip. That's not public information. It could be, yes, male between the ages of whatever. I'm sure all of that is spelled out. But you would, if I were putting together an audit committee, I would make sure that this bylaw would not intentionally or unintentionally supersede any of the other privacy acts. There's a reason that scanner out there, the copy machine, doesn't scan to email anymore. It scans to a file on your desk, on your desktop, so that in the event any email is compromised, all of a sudden we're not going through and taking Michelle Jervis's health insurance information. So we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that the information that's been designated confidential remains such.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's fraught with peril.
Board members, any other feedback on this one so far?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had,
Mr. Mayor?
last year I had looked at a relatively similar bylaw like this. I know there was a lot of talk about going through audits and stuff like that. So I took a look at one of these. There is the appointment would be one member is appointed from the FAA. One would be appointed from the town moderator, and one would be appointed from the Board of Selectmen. In contrast, the FAA has 9 appointments. 5 come from the moderator, 2 come from the Board of Selectmen, and 2 come from the town treasurer. When I was looking at this, I was kind of thinking, how can we work this maybe in as a subcommittee into the FAA? Most of the responsibilities here look like they are more in the advisory position than anything else. So I was kind of looking at how do we incorporate that into FAA. The one thing that kind of stood out, which I don't think FAA would have the ability to incorporate, would be the under the duties and responsibilities would be the line A, responsible for selecting independent auditor every 3 years for services of that independent auditor. So I'm not sure we would be able to have that kind of authority. Would that be part of some sort of procurement issue, Mr. Ruda, that you know of? Or?
I think we'd want to talk to the town council and ask that question. If the boards want me to do that, I can ask that question and get back to you.
Yeah,
I'll call
because
tomorrow.
the only thing I would foresee is if an independent board was selecting our auditor and instructing that auditor on what type of audit we're doing, that could end up could be highly expensive if that's suggested. So that's the only thing I'm concerned about on it, is the potential of having an auditor that you could spend $500,000 auditing public records and stuff. So it could be very expensive. So, but other than that, that's the only.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Landry?
just another reminder. I'm sure there's going to be many. The DOR already started their audit on a town, on a system. And as I said at the last meeting, they're aware of this article, this petition, and they recommended that it be held or tabled to the fall meeting for when they're done with their extensive audit of the town. And that, at that point, when all the reports and recommendations are done, then we'll know where we stand. Then we'll know what's wrong, if anything. Then we'll know what tools to use to fix it, instead of just creating all these different bodies and entities that we don't know what the problem is yet. So that's just another reminder.
You know, Mr. Chair, Mr. Landry is correct too. The main petitioner on this article started out at a few of our meetings and at the microphone, I won't say loudly, but he was quite firm in his belief or conviction, or he was gonna bring the state auditor's office in, and he gave us several updates that things look good. At one point, he actually said that the schools had agreed to an audit, and then former finance director Matthew responded in an email that was not quite the case. So I think we as a board, we were proactive to get DLS involved, to look at the town side, which I thought was the intent in the beginning of the main petitioner. But as Mr. Landry said, we now have an opinion from the state. It's not the auditor's office, but it's the Department of Local Services. Pretty darn close, right? I'm not sure they report to in the big scheme of things. And we're gonna maybe put a full-time audit committee in that's appointed by, 1/3 appointed by 3 people, but it stands independent of everybody. You know, again, I wanna wait till how it shakes out, but, you know, people that have financial expertise and independence from day-to-day operation of the town, you can't be any more vague. Who deems the level of financial expertise qualified for an audit committee to oversee a CFO, accountant's office, our assessor, our office, to be appointed by us, but to be independent from us? I think, again, I'm sure this has been cut and pasted from another town, or there's been things that have been approved other places, but we had examples of towns that were given to us by the main petitioner at the time. Some of them, I think it was Amherst, hadn't met in like 3 years. Another town completely disbanded theirs. I mean, I'd like to see how it plays out, but Mr. Landry said it better than me. Let DLS do its job, and people still feel it necessary. We can always do it again in the fall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just want to point to one piece on this that says the audit committee should be composed of individuals having financial expertise. Now, that's the FAA, and I agree with Mr. Mayotte. Why not have it a subcommittee to the FAA? How many open seats do you have on your committee?
Well, we can appoint 9, up to 9.
There it is. And if someone has financial expertise, wouldn't they want to be involved in the budget as well as audit? Because audit wouldn't be all the time. Budget isn't all the time either, but just a thought. I agree with you there.
But the only problem with that, with it being within the FAA, the FAA does not have procurement responsibility. So I don't think legally, even if we have the subcommittee, we can select an auditor. That would be the purview of Board of Selectmen, the town administrator through the Board of Selectmen.
Certainly you could make a recommendation, though, certainly.
Well, absolutely, we make recommendations, but that's not the teeth of the actual bylaw, so.
Agreed.
You know, that's an excellent point, Mr. Chair. Maybe if we're gonna go down the road of asking town council, is it statutory authority that grants the hiring the auditor to the Board of Selectmen, or is it just past practice and precedent?
I will ask
Okay.
I'll ask town council. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
No, and I know, that's like a ubiquitous question. We don't need an answer tonight, just that's something I'm thinking about too.
Mr. Chairman, you're the executive body. You're going through and you run this town. You have a town accountant that effectuates the budget that's adopted at town meeting. You are hiring your auditor. You are the ones doing that. I don't know if it's one of the 30B exceptions for procurement, but if you needed to go through and put out an RFP every 3 years because there is a public call for it, that's something that's easily done. And remember, Scanlon and Associates is a CPA firm. It's not somebody's friend, it's not a relative, not even a neighbor. There's the designation of a certified public accountant. You've hired them, and that's the pool from which you would choose. Powers and Sullivan, any of those. There's a framework that's in there specifically for Massachusetts. Same reason when Standard & Poor's goes through and does a rating in Massachusetts, there is a framework. GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards, has their frameworks. Each year I think there's 114 GASBs already put out. Mass General Law moves sort of at a unique pace. I was going to say glacial, but the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the one that goes through and says, for OPEB trust money, you need to go through and report 2 ways for year-end, market value as opposed to so on and so forth. But the Board of Selectmen would be the ones going through and hiring it. It wouldn't be the treasurer collector, wouldn't be the assessors, but it would be that third-party firm going through to do such a thing. And again, to do it publicly. If anything, I believe the town has been very public when it comes to some of their bid openings, the bigger projects. I know there were some people very happy to see this is what the new fire station is going to be. It's a chance for engagement, or at least that's how I see it. Again, it's a CPA firm. I'm sure you could get an RFP for it.
Thanks, Rich. Anything else on this one? Nope. Right. So that's the warrant. Thanks, everybody. Hand it back over to Mr. Siganevich for budget.
All right, yes, thank you, Marcy, I appreciate it. Pull up the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, we were just on, you reviewed the draft warrant, now we'll review the budget.
Mr. Chairman, ironically, the cherry sheet estimates came out at 6:59 PM.
Just now? Do we have
Did you
them?
guys see that? We just got them during the meeting. I pulled everything up just so we can talk about it. As it comes up.
Go ahead, would you like to?
Well, what numbers do you guys want to see? Chapter 70 estimate for the cherry sheet is 24,984,883, which is a little bit less than the House proposal and the governor's proposal. Transportation, 2.501. Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, what, you said, can you repeat that, the chapter 78? What?
Chapter 70 for the school district estimate, 24, what's this FY, that's FY 204, sorry, I was reading the wrong line. All right, so the House, that was last year's.
Okay.
My bad. The House Ways and Means, 25,328,187. Governor is saying 25,083,913.
For overall, chapter 78?
That's what it says. Dudley Charlton.
Oh, for Dudley Charlton, okay.
Yeah. This is for this school district. We do have this one's for the town too, but for bug and stuff.
All right, so could you repeat that again? It was.
So for the House Ways and Means number is 25,328,187. And the governor had proposed 25,083,913.
08. Okay, so a little bit higher.
Charter tuition reimbursement.
That one down.
You see it right now? You got, okay.
Yeah. Well, the House funded it to the governor's budget.
Oh, transportation, you mean? Yeah.
Oh, transportation was a little different.
No, it's the same, 1.952833, both House and Governor.
To Dudley?
Well, it's the school, I mean,
So, what was the number again?
1.952833. So if I go to Dudley, it doesn't break it down that way yet. So, something for us to look at. I know it's if we just got that, so.
Sounds like there's still work to do, Mr. Marcy. You don't
Yeah.
have anything final.
You guys have that on your phones back there, Steve? And
Trying to crunch, but
yeah, if you guys like have any like initial things, please feel free.
I'll be honest, I'm not gonna do the best math right now on it, but.
I don't blame you.
So,
Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman, for the Board of Selectmen, the FAA met on, was it the 25th? We met on the 25th. We got the town administrator's recommended amounts for the town side of the budget. Pretty much, we have as close as we can to revenue estimates going forward.
Yeah, as of now, Mr.
So, the only thing we hadn't had at that time was the final numbers from the school committee, what the final assessment was. We ended up getting that final assessment. The FAA did recommend I think they would call Budget A, would be the higher amount, and that includes the hire of an assistant superintendent. The only thing we did, and again, this was, it's early, it was March 25th, we don't have a lot of numbers, we kind of reduced, I don't know if you can see it on your sheet, you guys don't have the sheets, we reduced the transportation, there's an increase in transportation because it's projected that it's going to be lower reimbursed than it had been in the past. Or last year, so that to Dudley was $257,892. We kind of pulled that off of the amount, kind of in anticipation of waiting for a little bit more than just the governor's budget. We're kind of looking for things to go into House and Ways, see where that would go. Obviously, there's still a lot of sausage making going on up there. Mr. Marcy can enlighten us on all that. We're hoping there's a lot more, a lot of amendments and stuff filed to kind of move that transportation reimbursement number up a bit. It also has to go to the Senate, so there's a long ways away. We may not even see a budget, I guess, probably until September, I'm assuming. Hopefully it'll be a little quicker than that. But so we did kind of pull back on some of the transportation reimbursement number. Doesn't look as promising with the House Ways and Means at this point. So, I think probably going to be looking from the school committee for maybe, some of these numbers, if they want to adjust a little bit their assessment, take a look at that going forward. But at this point, that's what we recommended, so.
Mr. Mayor.
Do you want to add anything to that? Yeah, Steve.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your time tonight. Yes, we were with the House Ways and Means numbers that came out, and as a school district, traditionally, we've always gone with the most favorable numbers.
Yep.
With the House Ways and Means, the transportation did not bump up, which we all were hoping that would bump up, but to help us out, the House Ways and Means did increase the minimum contribution per student. Mm-hmm. It's always been traditionally $30. The wisdom of the House is to put it as a separate line, not put it in Chapter 70, which means that it doesn't continue as future consideration, but they did bump it up by $74 per student. Mm-hmm. And if we even come close to that, that really, we are very close in our numbers with what I read tonight on the April 11th school assessment, this three system illegal. We are very close. We're just flipping because you have the additional 207 with the additional minimum contribution going up to $104 per student. That brings our preliminary estimate brings that down to $92,000 instead of 207. But it does, I flip it back into transportation because that didn't go up as we expected it to, but we are close. If I do the quick math with our math right now, we're about $89,000 apart right now between what you've recommended and where we are. Now, I want to be clear, that still requires school committee to take a vote.
Right.
So I'm not here to speak on their behalf in that regard, but we are very close, and the House did come in with some different numbers for us. Everything else was kind of flatlined, like circuit breaker reimbursement, all those things with the House, which is understandable, but that minimum contribution, because there are, I think, 47 districts in our 47% of the districts in our state are all minimum contribution districts, meaning they're only getting $30 per student as additional state aid this year. I think that's where the House came in and said we need to pump in a little bit more money for those 47% of the districts in our state. So again, it didn't go into transportation, but it did come out in some other way, and I think, quite honestly and optimistically, we are very, very close to what is on this paper here for your recommendation. And I think we can make that work.
Just as a little insight, one of the things I noticed today which I think what I asked a few people was, there are finally starting to be some major movements on Chapter 70. Like people, very powerful people who have said, this needs to be fixed. And one of the amendments I'm going to sign on to is it's a study committee to, with a whole bunch of people from around the state to really look at this problem, right? So this is what we've been all complaining about for a couple of years now. So why not, right?
Right, we've been a minimum contribution district since 2009.
Right.
But the value of lower enrollment doesn't equate to the value of conducting business. It never has, and that wash is what's hurting us, and it's what's hurting you as a community as well. So we do look for movement on that. But again, we always go with the favorable numbers, and my recommendation to school committee, because it still puts us in a position where school committee stood. As far as their recommendation for the budget, it's just the values changed because the House came out with more favorable numbers for us with those two items.
So at this point, should we wait for our school committee to kind of go over these numbers and reassess and send it back to Dudley and Charlton?
For your final vote for the town meeting? Respectfully, I don't know your timeline when you have to have that actual figure in. Ready for the warrant. I don't know if it's certainly not the day before, but school committee is set to meet on the 24th of this month, and then May 10th, I think it is.
Yeah, 24th will work. The 10th will be cut into too close.
Oh.
We could also make an adjustment if needed the night of. I hate doing that.
I agree.
I'd rather have it settled by this month. Yeah. But if it's a difference of 90,000 from the original vote.
Yeah, and we still got a ways to go. So, that's definitely very close. So, hopefully.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Anyone else have anything to add? Anyone? No? Mr. Ruda, anything?
We'll have to, Mr. Chairman, make sure we get a meeting on to see what happened on the 24th. So,
What is the, John? What is the next process you're going through up there?
All amendments have to be in by Friday or tomorrow.
Are you filing any education amendments?
There's a bunch there that people are signing on to.
Okay.
Like the ones that have been in the works.
Transportation?
I don't know that specifically because it's kind of.
Usually Ryan puts one up.
Oh, wait, call me back.
Okay. All right.
And then budget week, House budget meets 24th, 5th, and 6th at least.
All right.
And hopefully we can get it all done. Send it to the Senate.
Hopefully we can get a little bit higher.
Yep.
So, couple of changes. The articles originally at our last meeting, we're gonna use free cash in the budget itself.
yeah, we can go over that.
So if you want to go over that and give us a number.
So it's the free cash stabilization 2025 tab. So right now, the way, having plugged in the FAA's recommended amount and making some adjustments, the following are the sources of funding for some of the articles and the additional amount for the school assessment. The merit pool, the police cruiser, treasurer collector and town clerk raises, dam inspections, treasurer's unpaid bill, town accountant class, which is a small amount, but not usually budgeted, because we expect a retirement from the town accountant, so the incoming town accountant is probably not going to have the classes required to be a town accountant. So there's certain certifications that are required, so we've budgeted that. And we've also added in an additional $20,000 for grant and project design for the same purpose that I've railed on about over the past few years, in order to put us in a position to invest a small amount of money to get a big return. So the free cash balance, after all that free cash is applied at the town meeting and into the operating budget, is $1,632. That's what's left out of free cash. We started at $150.
Great. Get some pizzas. Okay.
Stabilization, we want me to keep?
Yeah, what are our current balances for stable, for capital?
Our current balance is overview. I can feel it staring at me. $1,026,000 in stabilization. Capital stabilization is $1,006,098. Free cash $150,000 for a total of $2.1 million. That's what it currently is.
So, under the current recommended budget, what's our transfer amount from stable to cover it?
Under the current recommended budget, $637,752 from stable, $423,191 from capital, and $25,730 from free cash. And the balance in free cash should be applied at town meeting to the warrant articles. There are some town funding that we are using some stabilization towards funding a few town items as well, but.
So that leaves us one. So this is where it's gonna be a problem next year. Because that's all we got. That's all we got left. If the debt exclusion does pass, you know, you can up that number. Another what is it? 350, 330.
338, 191. If I'm reading the right line item.
So the free cash has to be. It shows the balances after this meeting, because we're going to discuss the FAA recommended amount. So the balance would be $388,413 in stable, $582,907 in capital, with free cash saying $124. But don't forget, that's going to be applied
to your budget,
the warrant
item. So you still less.
So we're going to be in the $850, $860 range.
Right.
Of course, we always fix it in October with certified free cash and put more in, but that's going to catch up after after a year.
One more budget cycle, and
it will definitely catch up.
Yes.
You're right.
So everybody knows.
Anything else?
No. If we get if FAA gets a new assessment from the school committee, we can modify if we need to at that point.
That's good.
Anybody from FAA have a question or anything? No?
So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman, I'm going to continue with the assumption that we're going with the last FAA recommendation until we hear differently. Correct?
That's fair.
Okay. Great.
Anything else? Nothing? Nothing? Nothing?
Other than dates of getting back together as you do it.
We really need to, like, meet right after the 24th to determine, to take a final vote on everything, one way or another. Because we need to be posted the week of May 3rd.
Right, but we can still make adjustments right up to town meeting,
Correct,
if we need to.
correct. We'll publish what we have at the time. You can make the adjustment at the time of the town meeting, but it's not a great way to operate. But if we have to, we have to. If we were gonna save a substantial amount of money, I don't have any problem operating like that, but.
I'll ask, Kathleen, maybe you can answer this. When do you guys need a definitive number from us in order to move forward with that budget? Any stuff that have to be at the town meeting, right? You have up to then?
I'm sorry.
So you would need our budget at town meeting to move forward with whatever that is, right?
We need your recommended budget for us to. Yeah, in my head, I have the opposite. That's fine. You need us to give you ours if there's an adjustment made by school committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right up to town meeting time, and then
I
hopefully
thought-
before it, but.
Yes, I thought, to me, the goal is before it.
Okay.
And right now, I'm targeting the school committee April 24th to deliberate it and see if there's an outcome from
Okay.
there. Okay?
So again, Mr. Chairman, we're at 1,213,166 voted increase recommended by the FAA. The school committee voted the increase of 1,471,058, and we're talking a difference of about $89,000. So
Close it up a little bit.
So we'll be 1.3 and change at that point if the school committee makes that adjustment.
Okay.
We're within $100,000-ish of what the original recommendation would be.
I think we're in much better position than we were last year, guys.
Yeah, well, we have that free cash, that stabilization to lean back on.
One-time infusion of capital.
I know it's not comfortable, but.
Not gonna get that next year.
Like I say again, you see the amount of infusion of savings. That's where we are next year. That
Right.
It'll be a different climate, for sure, you know. Hopefully we'll be fine, but we'll see. Yes.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Chairman, I apologize for not presenting this earlier, but I just wanted to share with you, because I know next year, we all obviously want to do our work too, in preparation for next year because of the use of funds this year. I just want to share, if you didn't know, the school committee has authorized us to do a operational audit for our district for the month of May, but that's looking at all of our 7 schools, and that's really asset management. That's what that audit is really going to do. How are we utilizing our staff? How are we utilizing our systems? Things of that nature. And I've also engaged with DOR, and we're on their list now, and they're going to come in next fall to the regional district with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and they're going to do the similar thing that they're doing for you as a town in the fall. So those things are happening to try to answer the questions that are out there and have been out there that we need to answer as well. And we need to come up with what our game plan is moving forward too for fiscal responsibility, but also asset management within our particular district. And I do want to remind you too that part of the capital plan that was approved in September 2022 was an architectural review of all of our schools. That is coming in the month of May of this year for us to look at, so we can actually establish a research backed up capital plan moving forward for our district. So those three things are all happening at the same time and within the next couple of months, and we hope to be able to present good information for you as a community in that area. Okay?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Anything else?
Does anybody in the field got anything they want?
So next, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just to recap, because I don't want to adjourn the meeting without everyone who may be watching at home or here. We're looking at a difference between $1,213,000 versus $1,471,000. We have the opportunity to reduce that by about $89,000, which will put us at $1,382,000. And we have a debt exclusion vote coming up that will remove the 300 and, what was it, 338, 339? That's what I said, 351, right? It'll put it back, so we have to budget it now, but if that vote passes, it goes back into stabilization. So we're just a hair over $1 million increase for the assessment over next year. So we're juggling we have a few balls in the air right now, but there is some opportunities to, move forward. A little bit.
It is what it is.
And my battery's running low. So.
Mine too.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, the next thing on the agenda is adjournment.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. Do you have to adjourn yours as
I
well?
think we did a joint, we started up with a joint, right?
Okay, motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody, good night.